We're gonna need a bigger boat. Hey there, Nerd Nation. Darth Jager here. Welcome y'all back to the channel. Today we're talking about the 50th anniversary of Jaws and the all-new 4K Steelbook release.
Y'all know me. Know how I earn a living. I'll catch this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy. Bad fish.
Jaws was a 1975 film by director Steven Spielberg that was based on the 1974 novel of the same name by Peter Benchley. It would go on to become the highest grossing movie of all time, and is credited with being the first summer blockbuster. But y'all probably already know this. So, before we get stuck in, I'd like to invite y'all to subscribe to the channel, like, share the video around, and hit that bell for notifications. It really helps the channel in YouTube's ever-changing algorithms. And now, let's get all brain freeze on. Now, it's not exactly what the kids would call a hot take to state that Jaws is one of, if not the greatest movie of all time. The question is, why? On the surface, it's the classic story of man versus nature, where three very different men put their lives on the line in a quest to stop a gigantic rogue shark that's terrorizing the small New England island community of Amity. So if you've never seen the film before and all you knew about Jaws was that simple synopsis, it might be well within your rights to think of it as nothing more than a B monster movie along the lines of The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms from 1953, or even 1958's The Spider. But the writing, the characters, and the terrific nuanced performances by Roy Scheider as Chief Brody, Robert Shaw as Quint, and Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hooper put the movie far above B movie schlock already. Not to mention a 27-year-old Steven Spielberg's incredible directing under tremendously stressful circumstances. Mix in an unforgettable score by John Williams, and you have a movie that is infinitely rewatchable and is a flick that I return to at least once a year, and probably all of you should too. The true genius of Jaws is also something that came about completely by accident. The stage direction in the script and the storyboards gave the very real intention of the filmmakers to show off the shark as much as possible. But since the mechanical sharks, nicknamed Bruce by Spielberg after his lawyer, Bruce Romer, well, they didn't work 80% of the time, so it forced the director to shoot around the problem. Spielberg switched up the schedule and shot everything with the actors, the townspeople, and when he eventually ran out of things to shoot on land, he had to craft the shark scenes in a different way so that they hinted and suggested the shark's presence, which ended up conveying a more palpable sense of fear and menace that constantly showing the mechanical antagonist never would have done. This choice, born from necessity, makes the shark's eventual reveal at 1 hour 21 minutes into the picture all the more impressive and frightening.
Ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
Jaws was, as stated earlier, based on the 1974 novel by Peter Benchley, and was optioned by Richard D. Zanuck and David Brown for Universal Pictures before it was even published, for, get this, a whopping $175,000. That's like $1.14 million in 2025 dollars. And part of that rights deal included giving Benchley a crack at the script. He would go on to write the first 3 drafts that reportedly stuck pretty close to the book before the project was handed over to Howard Sackler, whose job was to help ground the script in reality. Sackler would be uncredited in the film for his work, but was known for adding some key elements to the script, including Chief Brody's fear of the water and Quint's backstory on the USS Indianapolis. Matthew Robbins and Hal Barhead, who previously worked with Spielberg on the Sugarland Express, were brought in to give the script a polish. And then finally, Carl Gottlieb was brought in to punch up the dialogue, and
Evicerate it.
Which he did. Brilliantly. There's a reason why this flick is still infinitely quotable 50 years down the road. The last two people to work on the screenplay for Jaws were John Milius and Robert Shaw, who ended up crafting one of the most memorable pieces of dialogue in the history of cinema. The story of the USS Indianapolis.
You were on the Indianapolis?
What happened? Japanese submarine slammed 2 torpedoes into our side, Chief. Was coming back from the island of Tinian to Lady, just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb. 700 men went into the water. Vessel went down in 12 minutes. Didn't see the first shark for about half an hour. Tiger, 13-footer, you know that when you're in the water, Chief? You tell by looking from the dorsal to the tail. What we didn't know was our bomb mission had been so secret. No distress signal had been sent. They didn't even list us overdue for a week. Very first light, Chief. Sharks come cruising. So we formed ourselves into tight groups. And the idea was, shark comes to the nearest man, that man he starts pounding and hollering and screaming. Sometimes the shark would go away. Sometimes he wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark, he looks right into you, right into your eyes. You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eye. When he comes at you, doesn't seem to be living until he bites you. And those black eyes roll over white, and then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red, and despite all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in and they rip you to pieces. By the end of that first dawn, lost 100 men. I don't know how many sharks, maybe 1,000. I don't know how many men. They average 6 an hour. Noon the 5th day, Mr. Hooper, Lockheed Ventura saw us. He swung in low and he saw us. He was a young pilot, a lot younger than Mr. Hooper anyway. He saw us and he come in low, and 3 hours later, a big fat PBY comes down and started to pick us up. That was the time I was most frightened, waiting for my turn. I'll never put on a life jacket again. So 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out. The sharks took the rest. June the 29th, 1945. Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
Benchley's novel contains several differences from the finished film, not the least of which is that none of the characters are remotely likable. Nobody's motivations could ever be mistaken for anything other than self-serving at best or greedy at worst. Brody just goes along with the Amity Town Council when they decide to cover up the first attack. Mayor Vaughn is nothing but a corrupt coward of a politician with ties to the mafia. Ellen Brody dislikes her husband, is pretty indifferent to her kids to the point where she has an affair with Matt Hooper. And speaking of Hooper, he gets eaten by the shark when it attacks the cage in the third act, like immediately. Quint is nothing more than an obsessive Captain Ahab of a character who ends up getting tangled in harpoon ropes and drowning. As for the shark, well, in the end, the mighty great white does not die with a bang, but with a whimper, as he just stops. He dies from a combination of his wounds and being unable to swim anymore with the barrels attached to it. The fish came closer. It was only a few feet away, and Brody could see the conical snout. He screamed an ejaculation of hopelessness and closed his eyes, waiting for an agony he could not imagine. Nothing happened. He opened his eyes. The fish was nearly touching him, only a foot or two away, but it had stopped. And then, As Brody watched, the steel-gray body began to recede downward into the gloom. It seemed to fall away, an apparition evanescing into darkness. Which is certainly anticlimactic compared to this.
Smile, you son of a...
Over the top? Yeah. Unrealistic? Sure. Impossible? Yeah, all these things. But it's also a hell of an ending. A real jump out of your seat and cheer type of ending. This new 50th anniversary 4K Blu-ray release not only gives collectors the most stunning picture and sound one could ever hope for in a physical media release, it also gives fans the all-new Jaws at 50, the definitive inside story. A feature-length documentary by award-winning filmmaker Laurent Brozero, which gives Jaws fans new interviews with Spielberg and pretty much everyone else that's still alive and was part of the production, along with interviews with more filmmakers and actors than you could shake a stick at, including Guillermo del Toro, Emily Blunt, George Lucas, and Robert Zemeckis, just to name a few. I won't get into the details about the Jaws at 50 doc, except to say that even if you already own Jaws on 4K, this doc is worth the price of this new set on its own. The new 4K release is available in this fantastic Steelbook with some, awesome new artwork commissioned exclusively for the release. The set comes with the movie in 4K and Blu-ray, along with a separate Blu-ray featuring the all-new documentary. All in all, this 50th anniversary 4K release of Jaws is worth every penny, and I highly recommend it to everyone who loves the flick. When all's said and done, with so much talent both behind and in front of the camera, it's easy to see why Jaws was the box office blockbuster it was back in 1975, and how 50 years later it remains one of the greatest motion pictures of all time. But what do y'all think? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to like, share, subscribe, crush that bell for notifications, and I'll see all y'all in the next video. Later.